I finally made my grand return from my self-inflicted exile off the internet and looking hotter than ever, might I say. Anyway, during my time in exile, also known as last month, I binge-watched all 6 seasons of the 2011 ABC drama Once Upon a Time. And because of how my brain works, I can knock out 10 minutes without making a video about a special interest of mine. Now, has anyone outside of the fandom and Harry Hook theorists cared about Once Upon a Time since, like, 2017? I don't know, but I care, so now I am subjecting all of you to this god knows how long video about Once Upon a Time. And before we get into it, if you care about spoilers, like, at all, I'd recommend pausing this video and doing what I did, depending on how much free time you have, and coming back in 3 weeks once you've watched seasons 1 through 6, because 7 does exist, but no one likes season 7. And though I do leave out and simplify a lot just for the sake of simplicity, I'd still watch the show because 1, it's just a fun time, and 2, then you have a good grasp on the amount of nonsense I'm about to spew, because it may be fun, but dear lord is it convoluted. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Hello, it's like 1,000,000 degrees outside, but I want to do like a little Emma Swan homage with the red jackets. We're just gonna deal with it draped on my shoulders. Anyway, season 1's plot. We start our story in Boston in the year 2011 where we meet Emma Swan, a bail bondswoman who is on a date. And during her date, she is called a friendless orphan. This is actual exposition given in the show, but whoops, turns out date's a sham and Emma has been tracking down her date because bail bondswoman. So after her little date gone wrong, she goes back to her apartment to celebrate her 28th birthday alone. And then this kid Henry shows up. I didn't like Henry, I thought he was annoying. Anyway, Henry tells Emma that he is her biological son, keep that in mind, and he convinces her to take him back to Storybrooke, Maine, a town where all the men sound, for some reason, either Gaelic or just full-on Scottish, despite this being a town in Maine. Anyway, we also meet Regina, the mayor and Henry's adoptive mother, who put the town under, you guessed it, an evil curse because she's the evil queen, and everyone in this town is a fairy tale character. And Emma is the daughter of Snow White, who has a terrible haircut, and Prince Charming, who's in a coma. And season 1 follows Emma trying to bring back the happy endings and break the Storybrooke's curse, while also getting closer to Henry. Rumpelstiltskin is also there. He's evil and just looks really sweaty, like, all the time. Like, what the hell? It got too hot. I had to give up on the red jacket. I'm sorry. Anyway, season 1 starts out pretty slow because it's still finding its footing. It's also the only season absent of magic and the only season with one plot line. And though season 1 focuses mainly on Henry trying to convince Emma that the fairy tale stuff is real and Regina trying to get Emma out of town so she can protect her fantasy, season 1 has several subplots within each episode, the most important ones being the Snow and Charming plotline, which starts at the beginning of the season and spans basically throughout the entire show, and the Mad Hatter subplot, which happens towards the end of season 1 and sets up season 2. You also may notice that Mad Hatter looks a lot like Sebastian Stan. That is because that is in fact Sebastian Stan. We're gonna get into that in a minute, but right now we're gonna focus on Snow and Charming subplot. So one thing I didn't mention in the plot synopsis is that part of Storybrooke's curse in season 1 is that all the fairy tale characters get like normal people names. So Snow White and Prince Charming aren't Snow White and Prince Charming. In Storybrooke, they are Mary Margaret Blanchard and David Nolan. And David Nolan is a married man, which can be quite difficult when you're trying to set him up with Mary Margaret. And David's wife is actually his fairy tale land ex-fiance, and you never see her again after season 1. Now, because of season 1's slow pacing and need to drag out the will they, won't they, even though they clearly will, David specifically comes off as kind of an asshole, because his and Mary Margaret's entire romance is him cheating on his wife with Mary Margaret and then going, but I can't, I'm a married man. Yeah, sweetie, not for long. But of course, we all know the curse breaks at the end of season 1 and they end up together, and then from that point on, a lot of their character becomes trying to parent a now adult Emma. So, admittedly, character-wise, Jefferson, the Mad Hatter, doesn't have a lot to do after his debut episode. Basically, his whole deal is back in fairy tale land. He's a humble mushroom seller who gave up the whole Mad Hatter business after he had his daughter, Grace. However, he kept his hat, which is a dimension-hopping hat, and Regina hunted him down and asked her to take her to Wonderland to get her dead dad back, but he didn't tell her that because the rule of the hat is as many go in as does come out. So if 2 go in, 2 must come out. So Regina abandoned Jefferson in Wonderland and he was told, you're stuck here until you can make another dimension hopping hat, and that leads to, in Storybrooke, Grace is now Paige and does not remember that Jefferson is her father. But in season 2, after the curse is lifted, they do get reunited, and it's very sweet, and then Jefferson's hat becomes a plot device in season 2 for the first couple episodes, and we never see him again. Most likely because Jefferson is played by Sebastian Stan, also known as Bucky Barnes in the MCU. Because here's the thing, season 1 of Once Upon a Time came out in 2011, and Captain America the First Avenger started production in 2011. So most likely they could not bring Sebastian Stan back because of contract conflicts, but you know what? He was great while he lasted. We love you, Jefferson. So season 1, all things considered, has a pretty small supporting cast, which I did boil down from all like the guest star roles, because most of the show in season 1 focuses on Henry, Regina, and Emma. However, they do have some important-ish supporting cast. We'll start with Mr. Gold / Rumpelstiltskin. So Mr. Gold is a very powerful man in Storybrooke who runs a pawn shop and is more feared than Regina. And everyone in town owes him something. Let it be a lock of your hair or your firstborn child. Now, he, for the most part, is sort of an anti-hero / secondary antagonist to Regina, but by the time the season ends, he becomes a main character and moves his way towards more of the anti-hero side. He also has a romance with Belle from Beauty and the Beast. This will come back, and I hate it. Anyway, we also have Dr. Hopper / Yumi Cricket, who is a therapist in Storybrooke and is tasked by Regina to make Henry believe that all the fairy tale nonsense is all in his head. So Regina can, get Emma the fuck out of town and protect her fantasy. He also tries to counsel Regina at one point, to no effect. And for the first couple episodes of season 1, we have Sheriff Graham, or the Huntsman, who is the first non-antagonist. Realize he is a fairy tale character. He was also a pseudo, romantic interest for Emma and a sex buddy for Regina. I say pseudo-romantic for Emma because basically, 3 episodes in, he dies. Why does he die? Regina literally rips out his heart and crushes it, because that's just a thing you can do in this show. You can just take someone's heart out and crush it, or use it to control them by speaking into it. It's weird, but I like it. Anyway, his actor also goes on to play Christian Grey in 50 Shades of Grey. That's weird, but good for him. Anyway, let's move on to the main family before I pass out, because I'm very lightheaded. So, as I mentioned earlier, Henry is Emma's biological son, but he was adopted by Regina. So, here's what the current family tree looks like. However, let's not forget that Regina's stepdaughter is Snow White, who married Charming, and they had Emma, which makes Henry technically his own great uncle, and his grandmother is his stepsister, and his mom is his niece. Believe it or not, this is the most normal this family tree is gonna get, because it only gets worse from here. Anyway, on to season 2. I did a whole another costume change for this. Hello, it's the next day. Anyway, season 2 starts off with the first curse. Yeah, first. Being broken. Everyone in Storybrooke remembers who they are, and the Charming family is reunited. Also, Regina starts a redemption arc. However, the 7 dwarfs try to leave town and quickly realize if you cross the town line, you're gonna go back to curse settings and forget who you are. Oh no. And to make matters worse, we meet a thing called the Wraith, where if you get its mark, it's gonna come and steal your soul. So again, not great. Storybrooke's in a kind of a pickle. But if you thought the Wraith is gonna be a recurring problem, it's not. It gets resolved by episode 2 using Jefferson's hat. However, in capturing the Wraith, Emma and Mary Margaret get sucked in Jefferson's hat as well with the Wraith, and they are brought to Fairy Tale Land, where they meet Mulan and Aurora, don't ask. And so they spend a good chunk of the first part of season 2 trying to get back to Storybrooke, where they also meet Hook, who promptly tries to get into Emma's pants. Meanwhile, back in Storybrooke, Grandpa Charming is bonding with Henry despite looking young enough to be his father, and Regina's ex-fiancé comes back from the dead and is promptly sent back. Also, Snow White's sleeping curse becomes a plot device, and there's fire. And now, remember when I mentioned Belle and Rumpelstiltskin's romance? Yeah, well, Belle threatens to leave him, and you will forever wish she did. He's a terrible partner. Back in Fairy Tale Land, we meet Regina's mother, Cora, who actually sent Hook to go up a beanstalk with Emma to get magical realm-hopping portal beans, because magic. However, Emma befriends the giant that lives up there and leaves Hook for dead. However, he is eventually saved. Cora and Hook follow Mary Margaret and Emma back to Storybrooke. Cora frames Regina for murder, and Hook shoots Belle over the town line, making her forget her memories, and then he gets run down by someone's car, shattering his ribs. Now, this brutalization actually leads into the main plot of season 2, because the person who ran Hook over is not from Storybrooke, nor is he a fairy tale character. He's just some normal guy named Greg who has now been exposed to magic. So now Storybrooke's in a panic. However, we find out that Greg actually works for an organization that wants to eradicate all magic called the Home Office. Meanwhile, we follow Emma, Henry, and Rumpelstiltskin, who figured out how to cross the town line without shattering his memories, which happened like right before Belle got shot, and they go to New York to find Rumpelstiltskin's lost son, Balefire. Now, Balefire actually tried to leave Fairy Tale Land with Rumpelstiltskin centuries ago, but Rumpel is a coward, so he let Balefire go through the bean portal alone and end up in 1800s England. But because of realm-hopping time travel business, he's still alive and still like Emma's age, so he's like 30. But he's been in New York going by the name Neil Cassidy, and Neil Cassidy is Henry's biological father, making Rumpelstiltskin Henry's paternal grandfather. Anyway, we find out that Hook actually followed Rumpel, Emma, and Henry to New York, and he stabs Rumpel with his hook with a poison called Dream Shade, which I love. So they have to go back to Storybrooke, and they bring Neil too. Rumpel lives, and Mary Margaret kills Regina's mother. We also find out that Neil is engaged to a woman named Tamara, who, 1, has been cheating on him with Greg, and 2, also works for the No Magic organization. Later on, we see Tamara has joined Neil in Storybrooke with the ulterior motive of destroying the town. She kidnapped Hook, and Hook is convinced to work with Greg and Tamara under the condition that he can kill Rumpelstiltskin, because Rumpel killed his ex-fling, who was also Rumpel's ex-wife. He also cut off Hook's hand. Anyway, the town is almost destroyed, and Greg and Tamara kidnap Henry, take him to Neverland, and so the Charming family plus Hook go to Neverland to save Henry. Also, Neil dies. Like, he just gets shot, falls through a bean portal. He's dead. He's dead. So season 2 is when the show starts to have multiple plot lines at once. It's also the start of Hook and Emma's romance, which actually turns out to be like the most real and sweet TV romance I've ever seen. It's also a lot faster in pace because you don't have to deal with like all the cursed existence stuff, but that's really as far as I can go with the overview. So let's move on to the supporting cast. Alright, so our supporting cast consists of Hook, Belle, Greg and Tamara, and Cora. So we'll start with Hook. Killian Jones, or Hook, serves as mostly a secondary antagonist to Greg and Tamara for most of season 2. However, as the show goes on, he becomes a protagonist and unintentionally like the funniest character in the entire show, and he has a really good redemption arc. Belle serves as mostly a supporting member to the main cast and is actually really charming and useful. However, every time she's on screen, you just pray to every god that there is that she comes to her senses and dumps Rumpelstiltskin. However, she doesn't, sadly. Greg and Tamara actually serve pretty okay as antagonists. Greg has an actual reason to want to do what he does because when he was a boy, Regina killed his father when they stumbled upon Storybrooke accidentally. As for Tamara, she's just there, I guess. I looked on the wiki, I couldn't find any reason for her to want to eradicate magic. But with Cora, she also plays pretty well with Hook as a secondary antagonist. And to my delight and the delight of my sanity, she doesn't try to get silly with Killy. We also find out that she's the way that she is because she grew up a miller's daughter and wanted to move up in society, which is also why she killed Regina's ex-fiance. Whoopsies! She also almost married Snow White's dad, but we're not gonna dwell on that. We're just gonna move on to the family tree. So since season 2, we can now add Neil, Rumpel, and Rumpel's ex-wife Mila to the family tree as well as Cora. Nothing overtly insane has happened yet, but once we reach season 3, oh boy!
Abandon your god!
Hello, new costume. Anyway, season 3 actually has 2 separate plot lines, plot A and plot B, so we're gonna start off with the Neverland plot, or plot A. The Charming family plus Killian travel to Neverland via Bean Portal and are attacked by mermaids, but don't worry, they survive. Meanwhile, on Neverland, Henry is on the run from the Lost Boys and accidentally runs into Peter Pan, who is pretending to help him. Also, whoopsies, Neil's alive and he's in Fairy Tale Land. Back on Neverland, Peter Pan gives Emma a map to find Henry, but to unlock she has to come to grips with their identities. However, Regina says, we don't have time for that, so she cheats the map. However, Peter Pan does not like this, so the Lost Boys beat their asses over it. Charming gets stabbed, this will be important later. Emma comes to grips with her identity, and the map is unlocked. Later on, still in Neverland, the Charmings track down Tinkerbell, who turns out Regina fucked over in the past after she refused to find love. Also, David's dying. Yeah, the arrow which he was shot with was tipped with my favorite dream shade, so his days are quite numbered, and he refuses to tell his family as to spare their feelings, which Killian rightfully calls him out on, because what's worse, telling your family you're dying, or them finding your dead body? Meanwhile, on the other side of Neverland, Rumpel is coming to terms with his mortality, but not really. Also, oh look, Neil's here! And a hostage! Back with the Charmings, David's time on this earth has gone from days to hours, and he still hasn't told his family. So Killian tricks him to scaling a mountain with him so he can save his life. In this process, we learn about Killian's past and how he actually lost his brother Liam to dream shade poisoning, hence his desire to save David. David and Killian reach the top of the mountain, but oh no, David has died. Very sad. But lucky for us, it's not for long, because Killian uses the magical Neverland waterfall water to save his life. However, this comes with the caveat of now David cannot leave Neverland without dying. However, this is also short-lived and is resolved by the end of Plot A. Anyway, the men return. Hook and Emma share a kiss, and David comes clean, and Mary Margaret is rightfully upset with him for not telling her in the first place. Skipping ahead, the Charmings find and free Neil, and a, thankfully, super short-lived love triangle ensues. Regina and Rumpel send Ariel to help Belle find Pandora's box back in Storybrooke. The box is acquired, and meanwhile, Pan manipulates Henry into thinking he can save all of Neverland's magic, when in reality, Pan just wants to steal Henry's heart to preserve his youth, because surprise, surprise, Pan is an old man and Rumpel's father, who abandoned him as a child so he could stay on Neverland. However, he is running out of time because he tied himself to Neverland in doing so, and now he's aging again, hence needing Henry's heart to stay young. And now, to save you all a massive headache, we're gonna speed through this. A final battle ensues, Henry is saved, Pan is put in Pandora's box, and the Charmings take the Lost Boys back to Storybrooke with them. But whoopsies! Pan stole Henry's body and is planning to curse Storybrooke to make it New Neverland. And so to stop him, Rumpel kills Pan and himself. Regina sends everyone back to Fairy Tale Land with a new curse, except for Emma and Henry, who are sent back to New York with zero memory of Storybrooke or their family. And now, boom! It's been a year. Henry and Emma are living a happy life in New York. Emma has a boyfriend named Walsh, and Killian's here. It is at this point where we divulge into Plot B, which means time for a new costume. Sublime. So Walsh turns into a flying monkey. Yes, like a Wizard of Oz type flying monkey. And dies. But meanwhile, Killian successfully jogged Emma's memory and convinces her to take herself and Henry back to Storybrooke because everyone is back but has zero memory of the past year except for kind of Killian because he literally outran the curse that brought them there in the first place. We also find out that Mary Margaret is very pregnant and that there's this woman named Zelena who used to be a midwife in Fairy Tale Land, so you know, ain't that nice. But whoops! Zelena is actually the Wicked Witch of the fucking West and has an alive Rumpelstiltskin hostage in her basement who has lost his mind completely. Why? Because during the missing year back in Fairy Tale Land, Neil died trying to resurrect Rumpelstiltskin with Belle, and in an attempt to save his son, Rumpel, like, Steven Universe, like, gem fuses with Neil. However, Rumpel's mind cannot take it, so it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation. We will come back to that. Regina starts up a romance with Robin Hood, and we also find out Zelena is Regina's half-sister, and she's going to enact a time travel spell to go back in time and kill her mother, and needs Mary Margaret and David's baby to do so. Also, Neil dies for real this time, like he's never seen alive again after this. Meanwhile, with Killian, he's helping Ariel try and find Eric somewhere in Storybrooke, only to reveal during the missing year, he lost his ship, the Jolly Roger, to Blackbeard, and Eric is probably a hostage on it. Ariel yells at him, says he doesn't love anyone. Killian throws on Emma that he isn't a dick, and, well, whoops, Ariel was Zelena, and now Killian has a lip curse where if he kisses Emma, all her magic goes away. And, well, Killian would rather not take away Emma's magic, but Zelena says, do it or I'm killing Henry. So Killian is in a bit of a pickle. Meanwhile, with the Charmings, we find out during the missing years, Mary Margaret and David sought out Glinda the Good Witch to figure out how to stop Zelena from enacting her time travel murder spell. But Glinda's no help, so they go to Rumpel, who is imprisoned in his own castle by Zelena and is speaking in rhyme. Rumple reveals that light magic can stop Zelena, i.e. Emma can stop Zelena. However, Emma's back in the real world, so Snow, Charming, and Regina enact a new curse, which Zelena fucks up with a forgetting potion so she can't be stopped, and Charming dies, but not really, he's fine, and now we're back in Storybrooke. Meanwhile, with Killian, he's trying to get Henry out of Storybrooke to protect him, but Zelena catches on, doesn't like it, and swoops Henry up, but don't worry, Henry is saved. Regina gives him a little motherly kiss on the head, which counts as true love's kiss, recovering everyone's memories from the past year. The Charmings visit Neil's grave, and oh no, baby Charming's coming, so Mary Margaret is taken to the hospital while Emma and Killian try to find and kill Zelena. However, Zelena has Rumpelstiltskin under her control because she has the Dark One's dagger, which basically makes Rumple her puppet. Rumple drowns Killian, and Emma saves his life with the power of kissing, losing her magic in the process because, obviously. Baby Charming is born. Congrats, it's a boy! Zelena snatches up Baby Charming and uses him to enact her curse, but she is thwarted. Baby Charming is returned. Rumple proposes to Belle, and then he goes and kills Zelena behind her back, because he's a terrible partner. Why is she marrying him? Anyway, in the next episode, we find out that Baby Charming's name is Neil after the dead guy. And Zelena's dead essence enacts her time travel murder curse, sucking in Emma and Killian with it, and they accidentally fuck up Snow and Charming's meeting back in like past fairy tale land, so some Back to the Future hijinks bullshit ensues along with Captain Swan shipping fuel. And also, accidentally, Emma brought back Robin Hood's dead wife from the past, so Regina's now in a bit of a romantic pickle. Anyway, that's where season 3 ends. Sweet Jesus, everything in season 3 happened at once, but it somehow made sense. Killian and Emma's blossoming romance is fucking adorable, and it only gets better from here. Season 3 surprisingly did very well fitting 2 separate plot lines into only 22 episodes. However, I could have done without the Peter Pan reveal, but that's it. There's not much of a supporting cast in season 3, so let's just move on to this fucked up family tree. So after the events of season 3, we can add Zelena and Peter Pan to the family tree, which means yes, Peter Pan tried to kill his own great-grandson. Also, after the end of season 3A, Henry is now legally only Emma's, so I'm gonna keep it that way for the sake of simplicity. Also, this show is way too long to fit into one video, so this is now a 2-parter. I'm gonna try to get part 2 done as fast as I can, but no promises. I start my junior year of high school like next week. I might already be in school by the time this video comes out. I'm gonna do my best. Also, sorry for the amount of weird cuts in this video. I had to take a lot of breaths. This show is long and there's a lot to summarize, and each one took me like 7 takes. But if you want to see more of me, my social medias will be linked in the description below, and you should follow me on TikTok, especially if you like my Descendants content, because that's basically where like all the Descendants brain vomit goes. But anyway, until next time, I love you. Bye!